How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the 2022 Danish horror film Speak No Evil, directed by Christian Tadfup and co-written by him and his brother. It's available to stream on Shudder right now, of course, and it examines the relationship that forms between a Danish and a Dutch couple who seem to initially strike up a friendship, only for the Danish couple to gradually discover that the Dutch couple are weaving a bit of a spider's web for them. I passed this movie by when it was first released a couple of years ago. I had heard good things and bad things without ever looking into it too much. So I gave this one a go, and for me personally, this is a bit of a mixed bag. I am definitely still curious about the remake. In fact, there's ways that I'll be curious to see whether or not the remake takes the time to try and improve on this one, because even though this movie does have a lot of strong scenes and it's made with a lot of care and it is certainly not like an awful film, I did have issues with it. It's well made, well acted, well produced, but after a certain point this movie kind of takes on a bit of an episodic feel for me. I mean, you kind of learn to anticipate the setup. The Danish couple are going to try to be nice and polite, the Dutch couple are going to do something to make them uncomfortable, and that's a scenario that just repeats itself in various ways until you get to that scene at the end. It's the scene that I think is single-handedly responsible for creating the buzz that this movie got. Kind of like the first Terrifier movie, if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about when I say that scene. It's the first scene that I think of when I think about this movie now. But as raw and powerful as that scene is, I never really felt like there was a build-up that earned it. It just kind of happened. If this had been a short film and this was the end scene after 2 or 3 moments that occurred earlier in the movie, it would probably have a lot more impact. But to just kind of take us around the track lap after lap after lap for a feature-length period of time, and then just deliver something that just kind of pops out of nowhere like that, for me, the repetitive nature of the story leading up to it kind of killed the momentum that it needed to really take off when it got to that jump. And I can appreciate that what they seem to be going for here is the idea that this kind of incomprehensible, senseless evil can just rip out of nowhere and pounce on you in a very mundane, domestic, seemingly friendly setting. But again, I feel like you could have made that point just as well, if not better, if you made this a short film. When you take that long to get to that simple point, most of the audience is going to be, I think, intelligent enough to kind of beat you to it. And so instead of there being any sense of surprise or being taken aback when we finally get to the climax, most people are just going to nod with a secure sense of anticipation, like, yep. For an ending like this to work, you really have to build to it in a way that it rips your heart out. That doesn't happen here, not only because they belabor the point, but also because the Danish couple are so passive and so knock-kneed and so just spineless. I'm sorry to sound mean, but it's the truth, that after a certain point you don't feel sorry for them, because there is no reason that after even 1 or 2 of the things that transpire in this movie happen, that any couple, I don't care if it's a couple that's a little bit on the rocks or what, any couple would tell each other the disturbing shit they had just seen, and they would boot it. They would get out of there. They would clear out. Who cares about your bunny? We'll buy you another one. No, I don't care how special this one is to you. We will buy you another bunny. And there again, these characters are very thinly written. The Danish couple is quote-unquote passive. The Dutch couple is quote-unquote dominant. They may as well have it branded on their forehead, honestly, because they're both one note, and there's really nothing to these people beyond that. Even if you are going for something maybe more allegorical, perhaps along the lines of things that Darren Aronofsky does in movies like Mother, as an example, where the dynamic is meant to draw more on what these characters represent as ideas rather than who they are as people, you can still at least make them entertaining characters to watch, or interesting characters to watch. I'm maybe okay with the Danish couple, the protagonists, being a little bit more sort of vanilla, but for the Dutch couple, I think in order for this to be a more compelling watch, you didn't necessarily have to flesh them out all the way. I'm okay with elements of a character, and especially an antagonist, remaining mysterious. but you did have to at least make them fun or interesting to watch in some way. I think about movies like Funny Games or Wolf Creek, or hell, maybe even 1988 Danish film, I think it was as well, The Vanishing. Those movies all cover the same vague thematic territory in terms of having, nice, kind, trusting people being infiltrated by predators, worming their way into the other people's lives in ways that are very subtle and cunning and malicious. The big difference, though, is that the villains in all of those movies, all of which are films, in my opinion, which mine the same territory in ways that are far more entertaining and fun. They have villains played by guys like John Jarratt and Michael Pitt, both of whom dive into their characters head first and just gnash up as much scenery as they can, while also knowing how to be more legitimately intimidating and sinister when they need to be. The Dutch couple in Speak No Evil doesn't really have any of that. Even in a film that's affecting a more somber tone, there are still subtle ways that you can relish the fact that you are playing a villain. The role that character actor David Strathairn, if I remember his name correctly, plays in The Bourne Supremacy is a really good example of that. Yes, the fact that this couple are not supposed to appear to be movie villains is the point. I appreciate that. I respect what they were going for. In the context of a short film, making them these normal people who seemingly do this at random, fine, that would probably work. But over the course of a feature-length movie, if you're doing nothing really but repeating to me, these are ordinary people, but they're actually evil. These are ordinary people, but they're actually evil. These are ordinary people, but they're actually evil. Eventually, I'm sitting there asking myself, okay, and? Unfortunately, the director and his brother apparently trusted the idea that their screenplay puts forth about passive personalities versus dominant personalities to be enough to carry the entire film. Because of the way that the movie is shot and scored, we're sort of invited to tell ourselves that this is being done in a very artful, highbrow kind of way, but it's really not. If I was to sort of sum this movie up with a weird analogy, I think that I would say that this sort of feels like what Wolf Creek would be if Wolf Creek fell on its head and thought it was The Vanishing. So I don't know if this constitutes a hot take or not, but I am actually much more curious about the remake now. I'm curious to see if James Watkins improves on this in significant ways. He's got a decent track record in horror himself, so I'm slightly optimistic. And the fact that you've got James McAvoy playing the villain in this one gives me one more surefire reason to see it, because I'll do anything to watch James McAvoy bug out. He does at least seem to be approaching the character with relish, to use that word again, and that's something that was sorely missing in this film. So I will be curious to see if he and James Watkins, are able to elevate this and just make it a little bit more fun and briskly entertaining to watch. Will they keep the original ending? I honestly don't know. But if they do lead us down a more interesting path to get there, then that could end up giving the climax the bang that it deserves. So there you go. If this was done as a short subject, I think it would be a lot more powerful. It would probably be a home run. Spun out to feature length, I don't think it has quite enough intellectual substance to carry an entire movie. Even if the filmmakers clearly think so, which unfortunately makes it even more annoying and slightly pretentious, but oh well. So that's all for now, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to check back in when I review the remake when that drops in the early fall. Still more content to come your way in the coming days, so please stay tuned, and I will catch you all next time.